Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kelly Beard, Content Specialist for Maryland Realtors. I want to welcome you all to the Meet the President webinar. Our CEO, Chuck Caskey, is here to interview our newly appointed President, Cherly Abrams Davis, and to learn a little bit about her and her initiatives for this upcoming year. We do encourage your questions. We look forward to answering them. Please post all questions in the Q&A box below at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will answer your questions towards the end of the webinar. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chuck. Chuck, take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. And good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Cheryl.
Good afternoon.
We have some people just joining. We're going to just take 30 seconds or so to, again, welcome you and just to let you know that we're here for you. We really do want to answer your questions, and we will be as transparent and responsive as possible. There are very few things that are off limits, so please challenge us. And we hopefully you've noticed that we are as transparent an association as you'll find, and I think that's really important. And this is part of how we do this. I was discussing some of these issues with colleagues around the country. Then Cheryl, I think I mentioned this the other day and before the executive committee meeting that we broadcast. There are some state associations and local associations around the country. Their executive committee meetings are held entirely in executive session. Mm-hmm. And there are some board of directors that are, around the country, other state associations that you have to physically go there, and I just think that's really critical and a distinguishing feature of ours, that we not only are we not afraid to be accountable and to be transparent, but we welcome it, and we welcome the tough questions. And I really feel good about that as a culture issue for us here at Maryland Realtors. And so with that, I think we'll get started and slow down to a trickle as far as attendees. So once again, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Do you mind if I just piggyback off of what you just said, Chuck?
No, please, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we also appreciate when our members come to us and ask us questions about some things that are going on behind the scenes. It means that our members are engaged. You want answers. You want to make sure that we know about certain things that are going on in your communities. And the only way that we can know where you stand and what's going on is by some of those emails and communications that we get. So thank you so much for keeping us in the loop about what's going on in your association. We are here for you, and I'm excited about what the year has to bring for all of us.
Yeah, and that's why we decided, as you know, to do the regional roundtables. Instead of every other year do two, we're going to do two every single year. And I think that's really important. And you made it very clear, which I think is a great idea, that at least one of those has to be live streamed. So even if it's in Frederick or Greenbelt or wherever, that wherever you are, you'll have an opportunity to see it and even participate in it. So, and of course, leveraging this technology, I promised we were never going back, and here we are leveraging our technology and keeping our members informed. So,
but it's important, Chuck, because a lot of our members, schedules are all over the place. We have quite a few members who are dual career agents who may not be able to be with us during the day. And memorializing this content will give them an opportunity to be able to understand what's going on the state level, as well as their local associations as well. So I am a big believer in technology, green, anything that is going to lead us forward and make us more valuable, of course, but also give us some of our time back that is so valuable to us.
Yeah, it is about that, isn't it? So let's start at the beginning. Who is Cherly Abrams Davis? How did you get here? I know you had a very vibrant career before getting into real estate, and I think it's really inspirational in a lot of ways how you came to make the decision to come to real estate. You certainly didn't have to, and there were some naysayers in your life. I've heard the story, but I think it's It's a really wonderful origin story. So how did you, what did you do before this? How did you get into real estate? And I know a lot of our members are going to relate to this story and came to the Realtor organization, and how has your career path taken you to where you are today?
Sure. So let me first start by saying that I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I'm an associate broker and the office manager and partner at RE/MAX United Real Estate in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I've been a realtor since 2002. So I've been in this industry through quite a few markets. And I really love the fact that one of the reasons that I actually came into real estate was because I wanted to have more time as a mom to spend with my child, who at that time was 7 years old. And how did I get here? Let's talk about that. So before real estate, way back in the 19 something, I'm not even going to say that year, but I was working at law firms in downtown Washington, D.C. And I literally kind of worked my way up from the bottom to the top there. So I kind of went in as an intellectual property patent prosecution specialist, where I worked in actually in the legal field in terms of helping get documents approved at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So I really understand patents, trademarks, copyrights, infringement, and all that stuff. So I'm really in my element when we talk about those things. But I was in college actually getting my degree in business at that time when I started there. And once I got my degree, like within the next, 18 months or so, some jobs became open in human resources. And from that point on, I literally just ended up in managerial jobs and human resource jobs, where my last job in 2000, that I left in 2006, I was the human resources director at an international law firm in Washington, D.C. That is one of the big firms in D.C. And so, if everyone remembers, in 2001, our country had the worst attack ever. And sometime around 2002 in the spring, I remember my boss coming into my office, letting us know that they weren't quite sure what business was going to look like for them. And they were giving everyone a 2% increase. And I said, wow, you're going to give the employees 2% increase? And they said, no, we're going to give everybody, including managers. And it was that moment that I realized that if I'm going to have a say in what I'm going to make in terms of my value, that wasn't the place where I was going to be. I knew at that moment that I needed to take some steps to bet on myself and to make a better way for myself. And the funny thing about it is, I had a great job, great benefits. I mean, it was really a great space. I worked around good people, and I learned a lot about people in that space, which is why all of those skills translated well into real estate. To make a long story short, when I got the news about the 2% increase, I picked up the phone and I contacted a real estate school, and they had one space left, just one. And I knew that was my space. I knew at that moment when I made that call, that it was going to be something great. I didn't know anything else other than I'm going to real estate school and I'm going to be a realtor. And so I took the class. I immediately took the test. I passed on the first go round. And in August of 2002, I got my license. And I was excited, but I was still working at the law firm and I didn't want to leave. So I started out as a dual career agent. And I remember my first sale was to someone that I supervised at the law firm. I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then once that person closed and everybody else found out about it, and then, several people from that company started coming to me. I subsequently left that company, went to another firm. And in 2006, I bet on myself even further. I knew that I was going to leave the law firm industry as a human resources manager and move on to bigger and better things. So I went home and told my family, hey, I just want you to know I'm going to make this real estate thing full time. And they all looked at me. I mean, my husband at that time, my mom, everybody didn't really understand what I was doing. They said, wait a minute, you're leaving a six-figure job. You're leaving benefits. You're leaving 401k. Like, you're not going to have anything. Like, you're going to just be starting over on this dream. And I said, absolutely, because this is my moment. This is my moment. I can always come back to this. I know what this is, but I know that there's something better for me on this other side. And I just remember it like it was yesterday. I remember that moment when people think you're crazy and you're onto something. I think that's that moment where you know that that's your thing. And that's why it's called your dream, because nobody can see that dream but you. And as long as you see that dream and you believe that dream, you know that that thing is for you. So here we are, 22 years later, I'm here. I'm here as president of Maryland Realtors. So I do want to say that betting on yourself, betting on myself was the most important thing one of the most important things that I've done in my lifetime, because this career, even though, you know, we have some days and some moments where it can be really stressful, everything that you get out of this space is just so beautiful that it just keeps you and propels you to keep moving forward.
It must have been scary, and that's why I speak of it in terms of inspirational, because and I can't relate. I mean, I'm going to be really honest. You know, you guys pay me, thank you very much. I get a regular paycheck, I get the benefits and all that. That had to have been a scary moment, and you know, that confidence to invest in yourself and know that you were going to be successful working without a net. You know, it is, and I
Well,
know, I'm looking at the names of people here, and I know that our members can relate to that because they all did the same thing, and it really is a great story.
well, I do want to say that I did have a net. One thing about me is I'm a planner. I'm not
Okay.
going to just jump into the pool without a life vest on. So I did save up enough
Well,
income
yeah,
for a year before I did it. And that was my security net, but I acted like
yeah,
I didn't have it because I just wanted to make sure that I gave my all, not even thinking about that net, in order for me to be successful.
yeah. I mean, clearly, when people say, "How do we get started?" That's one of the first things we say is, you got to have a nut. You know, you got to be able, because the money just doesn't start flowing in. And so, yeah, that was very good planning, as you said. And then once you got your license, the next step is to notice that, oh, by the way, this is organized real estate, and we have these things called local, state, and national realtor associations. So your next arc and path was to get involved at PG Car. And, you know, how did that happen? Was it the standard tap on the shoulder, or, you know, what did you notice about the realtor associations that made you want to get involved?
Well, I'm glad that you asked me that question, Chuck, because when I did take the leap in 2006 to come over to the real estate industry as a full-time professional, I knew that there were a lot of things that I really didn't understand about the industry as a dual career agent, because when you're a dual career agent, you know, you have your family, you're working, you have real estate that you're trying to be 100% attentive to, and you learn things in a different way just to make sure you keep everything going, but you really don't do that deep dive as much as you can as a full-time person, unless you have some different time constraints. So for me, I knew that I was missing some pieces once I did come over to real estate full-time, and I didn't really understand the connections between the local association, the state association, A&R. I honestly decided to get involved on my local level because I didn't know what all of this was. And I wanted a deeper understanding of what I had just gotten myself into. I didn't want to just be status quo and follow what everyone else was doing. I wanted to really understand, well, why is PG Car here? Why is Maryland Realtors here? And why is NAR here? And why do we have three? And why don't we just get everything from one? And in order to get started with that, I did join a committee, And I don't remember the official name of the committee at that time, but I thought about, okay, well, what are you good at? You know, what's your skill set? And I said, oh, well, I'm good with people. So I just started with one of the committees that dealt with uh, diversity. It was the diversity committee because in corporate, I was the diversity chair for the firm at that time when I was working at the last firm. And so anything dealing with diversity, like in our world back then, we had been talking about diversity way before it gave me to real estate. And when I came over to real estate, it amazed me how many people weren't talking about it. And so that was my space. So I got connected with that committee. I met people. I met the board of directors. I did get that tap on the shoulder from Linda Simpson at that time, who was either on the board or president at some time. And so it all started with me just joining the committee at my local association, then meeting people, understanding the value that each association brought to me as an individual agent. And then it helped me have a deeper understanding of what I just got into. And I tell people that real estate is like an onion. You just keep peeling back these layers that you didn't even know were there. And you learn something new every time you pull back another layer. So joining the committee there ended up having me join committees at Maryland Realtors. And I came on to Maryland Realtors in the Fair Housing Committee, the Housing Opportunity Committee. Then I ended up being on a PAG, which is a presidential advisory group. And ironically, the group was formed to discuss how Maryland Realtors should change criteria for those people who are interested in leadership at Maryland Realtors. But at that time, I had no idea that I would be one of those people coming in that line at that time. I also received a Shining Star Award at Maryland Realtors for being on one of the committees. I graduated from Maryland Realtors Leadership Academy in 2011. That led me to some other spaces along the way. I became president and was on the board of directors at PG Carr back in the mid, 2015 to 2019-ish period. And I learned a lot. We actually bought a building at that time. So there were some leaders before me that actually started that process. But during my tenure, I was part of the process for procuring the building demo of the interior of the building, working with the contractors to create our space that you see today. And during my presidency at that time, we actually had our grand opening. At that time also was the dissolvement of MRIS over to Bright MLS. So, I understood the background and the history of how all of that happened because I was president at that time. So I really have a deep background and understanding, what happened then, some of the pains that we went through, and where we are today with what we have for our MLS. So I have worked in several different spaces and volunteered in several different spaces, and at the same time was able to help buyers and sellers and landlords and tenants list and sell and rent properties.
I think it's important to talk about the ARC, but in a way that doesn't scare people. I'm looking on the list of attendees, and many of people are known to me, but there's a lot of people whose names I don't recognize immediately. And I want the message also to be not discouraging. And I only mean by that is, if you take from the time you were first involved, you got on your first committee at PG Carr to becoming becoming Maryland Realtors president, 18 years, right? So when people come and say, oh, well, I want to become state association president, and I say, oh, okay, well, start on a local committee, and I do this at Leadership Academy. 15 years from now, you may be, well, they're gone, right? And so I think we have to talk a little bit about how that path to leadership, we can make that, not put so many barriers in the way, because especially young people, we want and need, obviously, we're an aging demographic here. The average age of a realtor has gone up, if not, not gone down, maybe gone up a tick. And so still in that 57, 50-year-old range. And so to get younger, it's really hard to convince young people to get involved and then to put them on a path that really has a longer time horizon than they might have anticipated. Have you been, talking about that as you talk to young people and trying to get them to see the value of getting involved?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I was just going to say that everyone's path is different.
Yeah.
So even though that my path started in 2006 and is now 2024, that doesn't mean that
Right.
that's going to be the time frame for someone else. So for example, our past president, Chris Hill, I believe that his path was much less of a time frame than mine. I actually, took some time off from when I left PG Carr as their president. Then we went into COVID. And so there was some time in between where I had some time to think about, what I wanted my next to look like.
Right.
So for me, it was 18 years, but as one of my initiatives, we spoke about this, the whole realtor next gen.
Right.
I think it's really important to make sure that we have the right voices in the room and the right voices at the table. And I believe that our next generation of realtors there should be a space for them to be in the conversation at the table. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that we should have those voices of that next gen at the table so we can plan ways for them to enter that space sooner than later to make sure they're getting the right information early on. Because I remember coming in, as a younger person. I'm not going to divulge that age, but it was, I was in my 30s when I came into the industry. But I believe that we have some very sharp next gen realtors who have some really good ideas. And I would love to have those ideas from them at the table and put them in, give them some guidance on some things that they can do now so they can be at the table a little bit sooner.
So switching gears from
Than us
the
baby
how,
boomers.
from the how to the why. What's our message to our membership who, let's face it, they only have their time, right? That's it for you guys. If you waste a day, I mean, none of us are going to get it back, but I can always come back to something, right? But you won't get that client back, or your time is all you have, right? So why should we ask members to give up what precious little time they have to volunteer? And what's in it for them? Because don't we have to have an answer to the why should I get involved, even after we get through the how, and even if we make a path that isn't so scary, why should they get involved?
So here's the deal. Everybody's why is going to be different based on what they're looking to do in their future, in their real estate career. The why for me, I can only speak about my why, but everyone has to figure out what their why is. So I kind of have two whys. So the why for me, I actually explained it earlier. So the first why for me, why I got involved was because I didn't understand what I had gotten into with real estate, with the associations. And it was important for me to really understand that because I needed to understand what I was paying for and what the benefits were that I was going to reap from that. But once I got there, then the why changed. It's like, wow, like we're doing this for the realtors behind us. We're doing this to make it a better space for us as real estate professionals in our local, at our state level. It's a different why. I think your why changes as you're going through the process. Everybody has a different why. So for example, COVID year 2020 was supposed to be the year of vision, right? And it really was a year of vision, not necessarily the vision that we thought we were going to have. What that year did for me, it led me to life coaching. It led me to pour the most amount of money that I ever poured for coaching to help me figure out my next why and what my next move would be. And through life coaching for me, it was very beneficial. It helped me understand like what legacy I wanted to leave behind and how much I have so much information and I want to see the space that we're in be better when I leave it than it was before I got there. And I think about all the other presidents before me. I think about all the other leadership teams before me and how they gave up so much time. I mean, we don't do this because we do this because we want things to be better for the future.
Yeah, I think also when we ask for people's time, that's an investment that clearly has to have some return. And
It-
so, when we talk about the ROI of service to the local associations, what real specific things? I mean, you've met hundreds and hundreds of people you didn't know before. You get experience in public speaking, which a lot of people don't necessarily have. Strategic planning, you came to that, you already had that experience, but a lot of our leaders, it's some of the first time that they are confronting those kinds of things. Certainly time management, right? We ask you for this time, but you still have a life, you still have a family. So are there, those are kinds of specific skills that you come to either have or develop or sharpen during your time in leadership at the state and local level? Is that fair to say?
I think that it's fair to say, but what I wanted to also say is that the fulfillment that you get when you defeated a bill that could have been demonstrative
There's that, yeah.
to a real estate professional or a person's private property rights, that's the fulfillment that I get. To know that I had a seat at the table, I didn't waste the seat, that we were paying attention and we made a better space for a consumer to have a better space with their private property rights, or a real estate professional whose income is not going to be taxed on services. So it's those kinds of wins. It's going to the State House and making sure that, whenever they want to raise our transfer and recordation taxes, that we are coming together as one to make sure that that doesn't happen. It's cumulative. It's not just a one thing. It's all of this together. It's leaving a space better than it was before you got the seat.
What is your message, shifting gears a little bit, to our members? And things are so unsettled now. I mean, I think we woke up August 14th and the sun rose and we have the new forms in place. We're having conversations about compensation. NAR is still under attack. Clear cooperation is, kind of still out there. People are looking at it. I don't think there's going to be any changes made in November at NAR's conference. I think we just got an email to that effect that there's no big change coming to the clear cooperation policy, but the dues, the pulling apart of dues, people are not happy with NAR. What do you say to our members in these unsettled times to kind of put things in perspective? And I'm not asking you for predictions, but there is a lot of uncertainty out there. So what advice do you have to our members who may be struggling with some of these same issues?
Okay, let's talk about this for a second, and it's not like a quick response. So one of my favorite classes when I went to school for business and I got my degree was a class where we had to look at case studies for companies that went through debacles similar to what NAR went through. And we had to basically say, okay, if this was our company, what would we do to get things back on the right track? And, they talk about Lee Iacocca and Chrysler and, all of those other companies that went through something. Unfortunately, we're still in limbo until the judge signs off on the settlement agreement. We don't know if it'll be signed off on or if there will be more conditions. It's kind of like having a loan that is conditionally approved that has to go back to the underwriter for a clear to close, but you don't know if they're going to ask for more conditions, come back with a clear to close, or get denied. So I just want everybody to know that we are hopeful that it will be signed off on, but in the event that it's not signed off on, we just have to make sure that we're in position to pivot no matter which way this situation goes on November 26th. So making sure that we're ready for all outcomes is really important for us. But NAR, with respect to building confidence from its members moving forward, they need to start leading a little bit more with authenticity, transparency, and strategic foresight, and control the narrative a little bit more and have a little bit more engagement with us as their members. They're engaging a lot with the top leaders at the state and local levels, but I think that NAR needs to reach out a little bit more and get to us individually as well. They need to preserve what's working at NAR and change what doesn't work. And once they do that and they start instilling a little bit more confidence in us as members, I feel that they will be getting on the right track. It's going to take some time. Like, Rome was not built in a day, and it's going to take some time to do that. People are missing one of the main points that we have now. I mean, it's the biggest trade association in the United States. Through their advocacy efforts, there's really no way that we can do what we do in the advocacy space without us collectively being this one. And there are some parts of NAR that are working well. And I believe that if they let us know what those pieces are so that we can start having more value, I think that that will be one of the things that it's going to take for them to get us in the right direction. As you've seen, they have made some recent changes internally. And it looks like they are making some progress in trying to get past all of the things that they've gone through in the past year and a half. A little thing that's different with NAR, though, is that not only did they go through those debacles with the presidencies and other things, we had the lawsuit on top of that, which is a very unique piece. So I believe that over time, the situation will resolve itself, but it's not gonna happen in a day. It's gonna take some time.
So bringing it back a little bit closer to home, your years go fast. Every president that I've served with has said, boy, I thought I had all this time. And then the year goes by and to a person, everyone says, well, that went fast. So what are your priorities? What do you hope to accomplish in your year as Maryland Realtors president?
So I'm a little different, Chuck. My approach is a little bit more multi-pronged instead of one big thing, because we had so many things happening in our industry in the past 12 to 14 months. We had the interest rates that were, I'm going to say, inflated. They weren't high, but they were inflated based on where they had been for the previous 4 years. We had that against us. We had everything that was going on with NAR. We had the lawsuit. And then we got a little reprieve back in August this year where the rates kind of dipped a little bit and now they're going back up. So we had a few things that hindered us from moving forward. But in terms of things that we're doing at Maryland Realtors to help our members this year, advocacy is a large part of what we do here at Maryland Realtors. As I just mentioned, with respect to NAR, we have Lisa May, who does a fantastic job coordinating the legislative committee to review bills that affect us as realtors and consumer private property rights. As a matter of fact, there is a big MSBR project happening at the moment that is percolating quickly that affects 3 counties with easement and eminent domain. There are several moving pieces, and we're working behind the scenes to navigate guidance for this very fluid situation, along with some other bills to create more affordable housing for new and existing homeowners. So advocacy is a big piece. Industry messaging is really important right now. We are doing a great job as an association to make sure that our brokers, agents, and consumers understand what's going on right now in our legal landscape. So thank you, Maryland Realtors, for updating the marylandhomeownership.com website. And for those of you who don't know, that is a website for consumers. It is updated several times a week. And if you don't know about it, now you know about it. And that is something that should be shared with consumers. We have a big consumer campaign going on, and that's just one piece of it. I was watching TV a couple of days ago, and I remember seeing the commercial on one of the cable stations.
Yeah.
And I was just so proud to actually, see it come to fruition. You'll notice a lot more video content from Maryland Realtors. We know that a lot of people don't like to read, but love to watch videos. So we have videos coming your way. Also in the works, we want to make sure that brokers have the right information readily available to share with their agents. And so we are putting some of the final touches on the broker portal at Maryland Realtors and providing some agent snackables. So really that industry messaging is really important, and we want our brokers and managers to be as engaged as possible to make sure that our agents know what's going on. I mean, I still list and sell real estate, so I see what's going on out here. I get offers for my listings, and I see some things that make me go, we need a little bit more help here. We need a little bit more help there. So the good thing is that even though I am an associate broker, I do still engage in real estate sales on a regular basis. So that helps me to have a pulse with what's really going on in the market. I'm a think ahead person. And so for me, sustainability and real estate initiatives is important. I think that looking ahead, there's a lot going on in this space that we need to know as professionals. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to engage this initiative at our next conference, which is going to be in October of 2025. So that will be hopefully another added benefit that we'll have for our real estate professionals. But what I did notice is that it's really important for us to focus on making sure that our agents not only have the education requirements that are required from the Real Estate Commission, but right now it seems like we need to level up and have a little bit more seminar type educational opportunities for our brokers and agents. And I'm hoping that we can add some of those benefits during the year so we can help our agents really fully understand the landscape of what's going on here, and it not be a class, but a seminar where it's not a 2 or 3 hour, it's just like a 1 hour snippet. We can actually put that information on YouTube, so if people can't make it, at least the information is there. Smart technology for business. As you know, everything's about measuring how well you're doing. And so I believe that as we move forward in this real estate landscape, that understanding how the AI-driven analytics can help us in our business is going to be important for us to understand our path moving forward as real estate professionals. So I'm hoping to have more classes and seminars on that for our agents so that they can incorporate this as part of their business. Because one of our initiatives and missions here at Maryland Realtors is to make sure that we have the right tools so that we can be successful in our businesses. And I think that's important. The last thing I'm not going to repeat is really about that Realtor Next Gen initiative, where I believe that it's really important to have those realtors at the table. So as we're planning our future, we understand the minds of the future agents who are going to be in those leadership positions.
So how about housing? You know, we're still in a crisis.
We are.
Housing is still unavailable and or unaffordable for many of our would-be homeowners. You talked about different markets, and I always said, if I can be around long enough to see the next buyer's market, then I'll be very happy, because I really do believe that a lot of our problems would be solved, and even this commission issue would be solved. I think the compensation issues would be a lot easier to address if we were in a more balanced market. But talk a little bit about the political capital. We did we did bank a lot of political capital by supporting the governor's legislative initiatives on housing last year. We have some pretty big ones coming up this year, but you also have other thoughts on some maybe not so more traditional ways to get people on the path to homeownership. Talk a little bit about those initiatives.
I do. And with respect to advocacy, I've said that word probably 5 times since we started this webinar, but it's important to make sure that I am a big proponent for ADUs, okay? And it seems that we have a problem in our state where some counties allow ADUs and then some counties do not. So ADUs for me is a really—
Accessory dwelling units, by the way, just in
Thank
case
you.
somebody always says, like, what do you mean? Accessory
Thank you.
dwelling units. So you're
I'm
welcome.
gonna say the long words.
No, now it's
Accessory
okay.
dwelling units. I think that accessory dwelling units is one of the ways and one of the paths to get us to bridge the gap with affordable housing. As people age and as people's circumstances change, some people get divorced, some people are widowed. They want to stay in their home, and some of the seniors want to stay in their homes. They don't want to leave. And so one way for them to maybe bridge that gap is to help have Maryland approve ADU zoning for the entire state to help get around those counties where the local legislators don't really understand how big the problem is or how many people may potentially have ADUs that shouldn't have them. So that's one big push. The second big push is that there is currently a homeowner's tax credit where I'm not talking about the homestead tax credit. It's the homeowner's tax credit, where if a person in the state of Maryland makes $60,000 or less, they're entitled to a reduction on their real estate taxes. What a lot of people don't know is that that number of $60,000 has not been changed for a number of years. And so I am looking at us hopefully either individually or partnering with another, what is the word that I want to use? Another backer on our behalf.
Like a coalition partner.
Bill to have that number more in line with today's CPI, and then moving forward, have that baked into the bill, whereas as that number changes, whether it goes up or down, that our homeowners are able to take advantage of that. $60,000 is a number that's been so low for so long. I don't think it's fair to the citizens of Maryland who may fall into that category. And there are some that make $60,001 and they can't take advantage of it. So that is a big push for me to either help more people either stay in their house or not have to decide between housing, food, or medicine.
So just go back to the ADU bill for a minute. I think what's really important is that last year's legislation, that really was the first time in the state of Maryland that the state not imposed itself on local land use decisions and zoning specifically, but it was a giant step beyond what had ever been done before. And so I think it's really important to note when we talk about our advocacy that we're not afraid to take on some entrenched interests like the Maryland Association of Counties or the Maryland Municipal League, because we are a results and driven organization. And so we put in a bill 3 years ago for ADUs, and they turned it into a study, and it took 2 years to do the study. And the counties and cities were at the table. It's interesting that the report that the state task force issued advocated almost exactly for the legislation that we introduced in 2022. And so we're back full circle. The local governments were on the task force. It doesn't mean that they're not going to try to oppose the bill in 25 in the 25 session, but you mean, we have to feel good about it. Is that right? I mean, we were ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. We've made substantial improvements and taken really large steps towards unshackling this economy and the housing market. But the local governments, their stranglehold on land use has really been the biggest impediment. And so we have to feel good about the strides we've made in that area, don't we?
Chuck, I feel more than good, because now we have the evidence to show what we've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah.
So there's really no way that they can say that it's not good for our state, because there are several other states where it
Right,
has been
exactly.
shown to be good.
Yes.
And now we have our evidence for Maryland, and
Yeah,
backed by some of those counties that didn't want it before. So now
Yeah.
we can say, hey, this person from your county was on
Yeah.
this task force,
Yeah.
and they agreed with what's here. So a lot of times, like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, but we will go back until, if we strongly believe in something that will be a win for most, then we will definitely keep going back until we can find a way to get through the door.
And it's not like these are trailblazing stuff. This is in some respects, as progressive as Maryland purports to be, we're lagging behind a lot of states around the country in tackling these issues. And so I think it speaks to entrenched interests and how powerful they can be. But I like the fact that we're not afraid to ruffle feathers for the things that we think would benefit the citizens at large. It's not obviously unanimous. There are a lot of people who are stuck in these old ways, but our job
Right.
is to forge a path that we know longer term will be in everybody's best interest. And certainly more housing is one of those things.
Absolutely. And I think people have lost track of that. I mean, one thing that moving forward, I think that a lot of people got stuck on everything that was going on with the lawsuit and the settlement, that they weren't focusing on some of these other issues that are plaguing our industry. And so now that that noise has been sidelined, I believe that it will give us a better path to move forward and get back to, what we do best, which is real estate.
Yeah, I guess that's a good segue, because although we feel like we're making progress, there's a lot of kinks to iron out in the new forms and how we navigate this new reality of compensation not being on in the MLS and things like that. But there still is uncertainty. I remember there still is a certain level of unease out there, and I'm hearing it. I know you're hearing it as we travel around. First of all, I feel really good about what we did as an organization to help our members get through the practice changes. And but what is your message to our members who are still sensing a level of uncertainty? What's our path forward? What's their path forward? What kind of words of encouragement can you give them?
Okay, so first of all, whenever we move into a space that we're unfamiliar with, I believe that for most of us, it's probably, you do have the nervousness about whether or not it's going to be a good thing, a bad thing, an indifferent thing, whether or not you're going to make a mistake or not, whether or not this is really the right path for us or not. I believe that your mindset, it really just all starts with your mindset. As long as you go to the training and take the training and really fully understand all of the nuances of what's going on, that's critical. I mean, you have to start there. You can't just get all these emails and not open them and not understand what's going on. And then you have a transaction and now all of a sudden you're trying to pedal backwards. That's not going to bode well for people. So number one, please, if there's something that you're weak in or you need to be stronger in it, check with your broker, go to your manager, start there. We have many tools here at Maryland Realtors on our YouTube website. Go there. If you're still having some issues, there are tons of books to help you get through. I think Shift by Gary Keller is one of the books that really helps real estate agents understand shifts. And really, it's no different from what we've been doing the whole time. I mean, our real estate markets shift all the time. And this is just another shift. And I am very confident that we've been able to shift all of this time that the industry's been here. The was here way before me, way before you. And it'll probably be here way, after we're gone, right?
Yes.
And so most people just have to get out of their heads, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. There's only one way to get to the other side, and it's through. We will get through this.
So again, if you have questions, I don't see any yet in the Q&A, but certainly happy to answer them.
I do want to
speaking-
say,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
do want to add one thing. So what I'm seeing is, from 2020 all the way up until maybe 2023, real estate was pretty easy for quite a few people. You didn't have to, people would just call us and say, hey, I want to buy a house. You didn't have to do a lot of, cold calling and things of that nature. Now we're just back to the basics. We're back to the basics where you have to put on your calendar, hey, these are my exercises that I have to do on these 3 days a week to make sure I have calls and I'm getting, more people in my pool. We just have to go back to the basics. It's all about making sure that you're sharing information with, your future buyers and sellers. We have to show people the value that we bring to the table, because even though we've done this in the past, it just wasn't done in a way where I believe that it may have been received on a higher level with the consumers. So Maryland Realtors has all the materials available on our website. I'm sure that, the large brokerages also have that information available, but the bottom line is we will get through this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think I look back to, we can go back 30 or 40 years when brokers jealously held on to that listing information. And I do go back a ways. I remember listing cars. My mom was a realtor, so I do have some memory of those days when the actual physical books.
I have
and
no idea
people-
what you're talking about.
Runners used to go to brokers and update the listings in the with cards that went in the binder that sat at the desk. And that was the MLS. And so, the democratization of information, that was going to be our downfall. Remember, not that long ago, let's fast forward 20 years, but and that didn't happen. Consumers still need us. So,
They do.
between 85 and 90% start their search online, the aggregators and the information is out there. But when they start to attempt to do it themselves, they realize that they really need us. They really need a professional to guide them through this very, very complicated and consequential process. So I think that's the leverage we have, and that's the ability to prove that value to consumers on an ongoing basis. That was really the impetus behind the consumer campaign, right on top of the bad information people were getting about us and our compensation and whether they actually need us to be in the transaction. One positive thing, and I do see a question, we'll get to it. I've asked around every place I go, I ask, are you seeing a rush of unrepresented buyers? Because a lot of people also predicted there were going to be, after a rush, an avalanche of unrepresented buyers once they realized that, hey, potentially you could be on the hook for some or all of our compensation. That really hasn't happened. It's still a trickle. And so that is very good news for us. So, but speaking of shift, let's go before we take the question. What does Cheryl do for fun? How do you get to what is your happy place?
Well, as most people know, real estate is not just a profession. It's part of your kind of integrated into your lifestyle. So the funny thing with me is that I try to go on vacations or, quick weekend getaways. And most times when I do that, it's the weekend that somebody calls and I have work to do. So I like to go and listen to live music. I like to travel internationally, and I like date night with my husband is where we actually go out and we turn our phones off so we can actually just kind of have some normalcy for a little bit. If I'm having a rough day, I just like to take long rides or go get a cupcake. Cupcakes are my weak spot. If it's
Cupcake,
a
I'll
good
remember
one,
that. We got a nice cupcake shop just down the
a
block.
good one.
And so by the way, it's important, I think, when we talk about future leaders and the investment, I don't remember a president that I've worked with who didn't get to still take vacations, who didn't get to go and, whether your kids are of an age, whether you're going to sporting events or whatever. And so I highly recommend, if anybody is interested in leadership positions, talk to Cheryl, talk to Yolanda or Chris, any of our former presidents, and they will all tell you, I promise, they will tell you that because we are professional staff, we can keep the trains running, that you do not give up your life to be president of Maryland
Right.
Realtors. So could you confirm that for me, please?
I confirm that I'm on vacation right now.
So we have an attendee, which was a perfect question from the previous discussion. I don't know how much we can say, but it's about the future of the MLS. I mean, because this person's right. I mean, a lot of people also predict, which be careful, anybody who makes predictions, stop them, don't listen to them. People were saying, oh, once compensation goes off the MLS, then there's no need for the MLS. Well, there's still this thing called cooperation, which is how am I going to know what other properties are for sale without the MLS, with or without the offer of compensation. So what is and you are uniquely qualified to answer this question.
Yes.
Don't make bold predictions unless you're comfortable making them, but
So
really it
I'm
comes
not
to
going to make a
value,
bold
right?
prediction.
What does the MLS potentially look like? What do they have to do to stay relevant, I guess, also as an adjunct?
I'm not going to make a bold prediction, but I will. I'll leave that to the great MLS and the spokespeople there. But what do I think professionally? I believe that we definitely will need the MLS. I don't think that we should give our information up to others for God knows what they're going to do with that information. Like, we don't know. I mean, if something is working, I think we should keep it. I mean, what is the alternative? I mean, if we don't have that, I mean, we've just given up everything.
75 years. And imagine a buyer having to go to every single broker's website.
Exactly.
Because the ad information is not in any single place.
The value
that would be
of
a
the
nightmare.
MLS is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine trying to do a market analysis and have to go to
Right.
10, 20 different websites? It would be a nightmare.
Yeah. And I think every MLS is struggling, not dealing with what every realtor association, state, national, and local, is that we have to demonstrate our value, that we belong in the space, that whatever you pay us to join or be a subscriber or a member, that in return, we give you more than that, in value. And that is never going to change. It's always been true. I think maybe this whole thing has made us work a little harder, including our members, right? I mean, if you're especially, we have to demonstrate our value because consumers think we work for free because of all the bad information. So I think we're all in this together, and there are some things that really unite us. And, we do this for a living. We feed our families with this, and with the money we earn, and we work hard for our clients, and we're worth it. And we have to own up to that. I think that's one thing that we're getting from this that will ultimately serve us well.
And I agree. And I just want to leave you with this. Read your emails from Maryland Realtors to stay in the know. Please open your emails and your magazines. Visit MarylandHomeownership.com. Listen, do the right thing. As long as you're doing the right thing, dot your I's, cross your T's, take that extra time to review your documents just to make sure everything's in order and you have everything together. We will survive. We are Maryland Realtors. We are strong and we will make it through. And then the last thing I just want to remind everybody about is that new real estate commission law that was just passed on October 1st regarding the license education requirements that need to be completed 30 days before your license expires. or there most likely will be late fees added to your renewal. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you didn't open up your Maryland Realtors email, but please do so because we want to make sure you don't fall into that late fee category.
Yeah, if your license expired in October, you got a little bit of a reprieve. But next week, or actually starting Friday, November
Exactly.
1st, on which day my daughter's getting married, by the way, but nevertheless,
Okay.
that they will not give people a pass on the late fee. So hopefully everybody's aware of that. Thank you for that reminder, Cheryl. And we are exactly at the end of our time together. Any last? Well, that was a nice final thought, unless you had.
Thank you, everybody, for
Yeah.
participating. I really appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. We appreciate you, and let us know whatever you need from us. We're here for you. So
All
thanks.
right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.